Okay, fine. Am I doing this?
I have the slide here this time.
Okay, and I go into that now. Okay, before I introduce anybody. Yeah, okay, fine, thanks. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming here. This is the second of our events on the launching and promoting of an act enabling or enhancing, I beg your pardon, enhancing nature-based solutions to accelerate climate transformation. The event today, we will have two keynote speeches from Monica Medina and from Bruno Oberle. Obviously, you all know, I hope you know both of them. Monica is the United States Special Envoy for Biodiversity and Water Resources and Assistant Secretary of State for Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs. And Bruno is the Director General of IUCN. So I hope we are going to have a set of slides, Emily, that will, okay, fine. And I don't have a screen in front of me, so I don't know what I'm saying. So basically I want to give you a quick overview of what is ENACT. ENACT is a voluntary coalition of state and non-state actors. We are looking to really accelerate the rollout of nature-based solutions as this very practical, and I'll highlight, implementation-focused, high-integrity framework for delivering biodiversity to address both the climate crisis and the biodiversity loss crisis. We have worked very closely with the high-level champions. We have worked with several other partners, but notably this is an initiative of the Egyptian presidency, and that we're launching today. And ACT is going to serve as a hub for action, really, to move forward. Now it's got three ambitious framework. We want parties, non-state actors to bring their actions together with a real ambition that we can start to cumulatively impact and protect and enhance the resilience of up to 1 billion citizens, half of whom will be women and girls. We want to see real transformative action on both natural and agricultural ecosystems through protection, through better management, and better management through nature-based solutions such as regenerative agriculture, through restoration. And in doing so, we will see actually livelihoods enhanced, livelihoods protected, but also making a substantive contribution to climate mitigation as well. So really this idea of being able to bring together a framework that allows us to integrate addressing both adaptation and mitigation aspects of climate change, but also reaching out and helping it's people-centered, so it supports communities, and it will also contribute to biodiversity. And it has here, you can see, a range of themes that we'll be working on, which reflects where nature-based solutions can be applied. It's not just an issue of being able to forest sequestering carbon. It's about good and robust coastal systems protecting livelihoods. It's about nature-based solutions going right into the heart of the city to be able to protect, for example, in Kigali, where it's already being applied, to reduce flooding. It's about linking up with health and the One Health agenda. And so just as we think about nature-based solutions, maybe if you're not familiar, think about these two things. It's an integrative framework. It helps integrate across at government department level. And I'm sure Monica will mention this about how this actually helps different departments work together, but it also integrates across, for example, the different Rio conventions, desertification, biodiversity, climate change. With that, it gives me great pleasure now to welcome the IUCN Director General, Dr. Bruno Oberle, who will open with a keynote speech. Thanks, Bruno.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's extremely noisy. Even for a COP, it's extremely noisy here. I try to speak as clear as possible. It is well known that the world is facing an interlinked climate and biodiversity crisis. The first and foremost need here at COP27 is for countries to undertake deep and rapid greenhouse gas emission reductions across all sectors, as called for by science, to keep the 1.5 degrees target alive. At the same time, the world's ecosystem make a major contribution themselves towards jointly addressing the climate and biodiversity crisis. Earlier today, the Egyptian COP27 presidency, together with Germany, launched the ENACT partnership on nature-based solutions. IUCN is proud to have collaborated in this effort, and thanks Egypt and Germany for their leadership on nature and on climate. ENACT is a partnership that has been developed based on a common vision and a shared sense of urgency. In order to really reach its potential partners, will need to cooperate on implementation, share ideas and knowledge, and jointly learn and reinforce each other's capacity. IUCN is a union of state, government agencies, indigenous peoples, subnational jurisdiction and NGOs, as well as an extensive network of scientists. It is in our very DNA to bring diverse groups to the table to solve complex problems. The Union has convened the conservation community for more than 70 years, and together we have helped to advance key outcomes. We have learned that progress will not happen in isolation, but it is built on the combined action of motivated partners. So it will be critical that we work together to drive this agenda forward. This COP has reinforced that the time for climate action is now. NBS cannot afford to fail, and we cannot afford to fail. It is time to bring together parties and NBS experts around the world to accelerate meaningful, integrated climate and biodiversity action. I look forward to hearing from the esteemed speakers today how we can work together in this regard. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bruno. It's now my real pleasure to invite Monica Medina. As I mentioned before, Monica is the United States Special Envoy for Biodiversity and Water Resources and Assistant Secretary of State for Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs. We heard earlier today at the launch event Brenda Mallory from the Council on Environmental Quality speak about the way the United States has framed nature-based solutions into a key part of its climate strategy. So I'm really looking forward to Monica coming and really giving us, we were very rushed at that launch, and I really think it's worthwhile hearing a bit more. So Monica, we look forward to your keynote. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's really an honor to be here with you, and I especially want to thank the Director General for his remarks and for all the wonderful work that IUCN is doing all over the world. It's a privilege to get to do the work that I do on behalf of the U.S. government, working for nature-based solutions everywhere. And I always think of it as I'm a lawyer, so I can't help but think about it. It's really good to have Mother Nature and the Earth as a client. And as we all strive to reduce emissions and adapt to a changing world, we must recognize and we need to unlock the power of nature to help us sequester and store carbon, to stabilize our climate cycles, and to adapt to climate impacts. Essentially, we need nature to reach net zero. The United States is committed to conserving nature. As President Biden said when he was here last week, the best part is that we don't have to develop any new technology. We just have to make clear forests are more valuable when they're preserved than when they're destroyed. It's just that basic. We believe nature-based solutions offer an efficient, effective, and flexible means to address the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss, and we are facing both of them right now, and we need to find solutions that allow us to get the double benefits from nature. I'm especially pleased to have, as was mentioned before, I'm especially pleased that Brenda Mallory, one of my great colleagues in the U.S. government and the chair of our White House Council on Environmental Quality, here with us today. And Brenda, I feel I'm stealing a little of your thunder to describe this work, because it's really been an unbelievable effort by our White House team to put together our nature-based solutions roadmap, an outline of strategic recommendations to put America on a path that will unlock the potential, the full potential of nature-based solutions to address climate change, nature loss, and inequity. And this is the first time that we've done this. This is a first for the U.S. government to develop a strategy to scale up nature-based solutions. And I'm very pleased to be able to tell you more about it. To demonstrate how the U.S. is taking action, the administration also announced a new and recent interagency commitment aligned with that roadmap, that strategy. Agency actions to assure that over, and this is a big number, $25 billion in infrastructure, climate funding can support nature-based solutions at home, a new guide for bringing the power of nature to maximize the value and resiliency of our military bases, and the new technology of the future to account for nature-based solutions and options when we do in the government, which we do all the time, because that's how we make the decisions based on cost-benefit analysis. We don't have as much money as we'd like. Who does? So using cost-benefit analysis, but factoring in the cost to nature of the kinds of projects that we want to do, which will be a powerful tool for turning the federal government around and really using the power of all this great legislation that I know we've talked about over and over again this week, our infrastructure bill and our Inflation Reduction Act, which allow us to meet our NDCs, but also bring us closer to being net zero ourselves as a federal government. Conserving, restoring, and sustainably managing ecosystems is an essential part of our climate solutions toolkit. These solutions include actions that protect coasts and critical marine ecosystems, a subject close to my own heart, reduce flooding and moderate extreme heat while replenishing groundwater sources. They also capture and store carbon dioxide, conserve biodiversity, and improve the productivity of agricultural and forest lands to better produce food and fiber. Ecosystems on both land and in the ocean are currently the best, I mean the best carbon storage system we have. Nature-based solutions on land alone can provide at least a third of the emissions reductions potential that we need in order to get that 1.5 degrees Celsius target, to keep it within reach. Let me say that again, one-third. We hear a lot about all the various ways we need to mitigate climate change, and the very most basic answer is right in front of us, it's nature. But often, this as an option is overlooked or under-resourced or deprioritized, and that's the beauty of Biodiversity Day. This is a day where we can talk about the immense potential of these solutions. So the U.S. is a very diverse country. We have, in many respects, but especially when it comes to our environment. So we have the opportunity to employ many nature-based solutions at the state, federal, local, and tribal levels of our governments, and we've been doing so for many years, and that reflects decades of our experimentation and our research. This extensive background provides a strong foundation for scaling up and expanding the use and deployment of nature-based solutions across all kinds of sectors and ecosystem types. It further demonstrates that effective, well-designed nature-based solutions can be the most cost-effective, can outlast conventional options, and provide multiple benefits, often beyond what the typical or what the conventional wisdom, the conventional options provide. Successful nature-based solution projects can scale up and use various different ecosystem types, including in the urban and the built environment. Again, it doesn't have to be out in the middle of the woods or in a far remote area. We can use nature-based solutions in big cities and local communities, cities and towns and neighborhoods all over our countries. And they emphasize collaboration with indigenous peoples and, again, with local communities. President Biden has in fact prioritized the use of nature-based solutions for climate, for society, and for biodiversity. In one of his very first executive orders, and Brenda will remember this from day one, the President committed to conserving at least 30% of U.S. land and waters, and that includes the ocean, and we are one of, if not the largest, we're very close second, neck and neck with one of the other big countries in the world in terms of the size of our ocean territory, our ocean exclusive economic zone. So this is a huge commitment on behalf of the U.S. government. And last year at COP26, President Biden announced the U.S. plan to conserve global forests, which are critical carbon sinks, as you know. Since then, we have driven progress forward in each of that plan's 4 key pillars, including building a whole-of-government approach to deliver on this ambitious plan to halt and reverse deforestation by leveraging a range of diplomatic, policy, and financing tools. And this year, on the second day of COP, last week, the White House announced our first nature-based solutions roadmap. In the United States, our Environmental Protection Agency is harnessing nature-based solutions to tackle many environmental challenges, including rain and stormwater management, coastal protection, and green infrastructure. Our U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is turning to nature-based solutions to help with flood control and storm surge in low-lying areas like Miami. And cities like Los Angeles are working to increase their urban tree canopy to help reduce urban heat. The Biden administration is using the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, those 2 laws, those 2 critical laws that we are so pleased to have passed and to have with us now, putting the wind at our back. These bring unprecedented levels of investment to nature-based solutions. with again $27 billion directed to forest management actions that can reduce wildfire risks at home, store carbon, and we are placing nature in front and center in the climate fight in our country. And we are equally committed, and I'm very pleased to say this, to harnessing the power of ocean-based climate solutions that offer co-benefits for biodiversity and local communities. Again, these are very often the most overlooked solutions, things like mangrove restoration. They're overlooked because they seem to have high upfront costs that don't actually take into account the co-benefits to nature, like biodiversity recovery, flood protection, and food security. If we counted all the co-benefits of mangroves, they are so much more efficient and effective than seawalls. So we are very pleased that our new roadmap helps us to do that very thing. And we're pleased to be galvanizing more ambitious action to protecting marine resources through our Ocean Conservation Pledge. And we just came from an event a few minutes ago where we invited all our new cohort countries who've taken this pledge. It's a pledge to conserve 30% of a country's domestic ocean waters by 2030 for conservation. And we're pleased to have had a number of countries join us today. And this effort complements actions that are needed on the high seas and in Antarctica to conserve and protect at least 30% of the global ocean. And of course, we have the Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction negotiation at the UN, the BBNJ negotiation, where again we'll be working hard to reach those areas of the planet that belong to everyone and ensure that we've conserved at least 30% of those for the planet's benefit. So I'll stop talking and let the scientists and the experts talk. I hope I have fired you up about the need for nature-based solutions. I hope I have made the case for why these are the best, most effective, most efficient, and really the most necessary solutions to the climate crisis. And as one who is looking forward to the Convention on Biological Diversity COP in a few weeks in Canada, we know we need these double benefits. We have to reach this double bottom line, and if we do, we can both solve the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis at the same time. So thank you to all of you who are here to think about, talk about, get excited about all the ways that we can together work on nature-based solutions and make this an even bigger and better Biodiversity Day next year at COP. Thank you very much and appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
So thank you very much, Monica. Yes, I think you have fired us up. I think you have inspired us. One of the things that I really like about nature-based solutions is it's a global solution. You can have countries that are OECD countries. You can have countries that are G77. You can at various different points on with respect to national wealth. Nature-based solutions still make sense. They make sense in the coastal zones, they make sense in rural zones, they make sense in urban areas as well. So I really do think, and I think it's testimony to the very fact of just the importance of nature-based solutions that we are seeing a range of countries that have stepped up, that are becoming founding members, that have actually identified that nature-based solutions are part and parcel of how they will address their climate challenges. And partly, again, because of this issue, it is integrative. It brings together different options to solve several problems at the same time, because we just do not have time left to solve one problem at a time. Now, it's my real pleasure to move now to the panel session, and I would like to invite up a distinguished set of panelists. I'd like to invite Inke Nicke, the Director of Nature Conservation in the Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety and Consumer Protection. Inke, would you like to take your seat? I'd like to invite Lucy Mulkenki. Is Lucy here? No, okay. Unfortunately, Lucy hasn't been able to join us. A good friend and well-known colleague for many of us, Manuel Bulgar Vidal. Manuel, you will know, is the global lead of climate and energy in WWF. He's a former Minister of Environment, Peru, and I'm very pleased to say he is the new chair of IUCN's latest commission, the Climate Crisis Commission. And I'd also like Laila Abdul Latif to come and join the panel. Laila is the Director General of Emirates Nature, a branch of WWF. So I think I will actually just join you rather than standing at the podium, if that's okay, given that there's a spare seat. This can you hear me? Okay. This is more comfortable. Manuel, I'm going to start with you, Manuel. Yeah. The heart of the ENACT partnership is addressing the climate and biodiversity crisis in an integrated manner, really getting those synergies working. Can you tell us why it's absolutely critical to build coherence in addressing these two crises and how nature-based solutions can get us there?
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you very much for this opportunity. So, all of us recognize that we have to address the intertwined crisis. There are no excuses to do it. We know the strong connection that we have in relation to how much climate change it is degrading, it is affecting nature, and how much nature can contribute to address the climate crisis. And we do have in front of us a key instrument, nature-based solutions. We are not starting from scratch. It is something that IUCN has been working for years, probably more than a decade ago. And what is interesting, it is to recognize that when we think about, or when we talk about nature-based solutions, we are talking about three main values. Nature-based solutions, it is to address a societal challenge, so it must include a societal challenge that we are planning to address, a clear objective, a clear purpose. That is why it is called solutions, because it is bringing a solution. The second value it is that it must be through a sustainable intervention on nature, and that intervention must guarantee biodiversity net gain and ecosystem integrity. Angela Andrade from the Commission on Ecosystem Management of IUCN is here, and she all the time insisting of ecosystem integrity, and that is true. And the third value it is that it must create social benefits, and it must be based on respecting rights, and strongly based on science that includes the traditional knowledge. So inclusiveness, it is a key element. So we do have that. It is our low-hanging fruit. It is something that there are no excuse to avoid, to take it, and to use it to address those intertwined crises. In that sense, ENACT, as a hub, it is well organized because it is saying that we have to support our actions in strong policies. And that is something in which we are currently strongly working on. We know that fortunately in February of the current year, UNEA 5.2 adopted for the first time ever a strong concept of nature-based solution, strongly based in the IUCN, what it is fantastic. And now UNEP it is working in developing some complementary rules. So we have already gotten a good multilateral recognition of the concept. I have here seen in my phone the leaders' G20 Bali declaration or statement. It is the clause 15 that it is recognizing that we will address the crisis through nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based approaches. What also it is good because it is eliminating this idea that we are putting two concepts into competition. No, are complementary concepts. Ecosystem-based approaches with nature-based solutions are perfectly complementary each to other. But we are still fighting in every climate COP to have the COP adopting the concept. So we do need to convince 2 or 3 countries that are resisting to the idea that nature-based solutions could help them to address in their own country that societal challenge. Because if we think about climate, I am Peruvian by origin. 63% of our emissions are because deforestation and land use. So it is clear that to address that main source of emission, we do need to use nature to reverse that source of emission. And that is happening in many countries, mostly in the global south. So as a global south, we have to recognize that in nature-based solutions, we have an opportunity, and we can show how effective it could be. But for sure, to do that and to convince even here and then in the CBD COP15 that nature-based solutions it is and it must be a key instrument, we have to secure high quality and high integrity intervention. And in that sense, the standards are really contributing very, very good to that. Because not every intervention on nature, it is nature-based solution. That is key. So if I organize a beautiful park, a small park in the corner of my street, it is good, it's a park. It is not nature-based solution. No, it is important. If I promote trillion trees, but part of those trees are affecting biodiversity, it is not nature-based solution. So we do need to be clear and to secure to everybody that we are guaranteeing and securing high integrity and high quality intervention. That is key. But also we have to say to the CBD community that they have to adopt nature-based solutions because they are the authority of nature. So if they don't adopt nature-based solutions, the only community and the only convention that we lost, it is the CBD itself. So we have to tell them, look, you are the authority. You have to secure the high-quality intervention on nature. You have to define those principles. You have to define what does it mean ecosystem integrity. To have you as a strong authority that it is securing that second value and even the third value. Let me finish by saying that it is really important, this enact, because it is referring to policy as the baseline, but also data and science, resources, and best practices. Because we are not starting from scratch. There are many good examples of good nature-based solutions intervention that we have to recognize. But let me finalize by saying nature-based solutions could also unlock the mobilization of resources, because we do need to have certainty in what are those instruments with high quality standards that can help us to address both prices. So let's continue insisting for nature-based solutions, and let's congratulate to Egypt and to Germany, here well represented by INCA, because of the release of this, the launch of this important partnership. And let's join the partnership, and let's continue working in making nature-based solutions a strong reality. I told Stuart that unfortunately I have to run because I have to be in the closing of the Biodiversity Day in 10 minutes. So my apologies, Inca, Laila, and Stuart, that I have to run to my next. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manuel. I think there's a couple of things I just want to highlight again what Manuel said, because I think this is really important about that nature-based solutions offer a high integrity framework. And this is, I think, something we need to be very clear on, that there are actions that may use land or oceans or coasts that go against what we know as nature-based solutions. They may try and substitute, for example, carbon capture on forests with food production. We need to call this out. We need to say that's not a nature-based solution. We need to be absolutely clear. When we say nature-based solutions, we've got to mean that it's also got that high integrity behind it as well. Now, I think the other thing is, and that's not just theory, we know that from practice. And I want to build on a point that Manuel said and then segue across to you, Inka, that we have got a lot of practice, a lot of experience that we can build on already. And that Inka, I'm going to turn to you now and highlight that Germany, apart from being the co-chair of the ENACT, which I think we're all thrilled about, but Germany has been supporting and helping to build momentum around nature-based solutions for well over a decade. You came in and you supported ecosystem-based adaptation early on. Indeed, it was your ministry, BMU. It was, we also with forest landscape restoration, which moved and then developed into the AFR 100 in Africa. Again, building nature-based solutions into addressing land degradation. So I'd like to, maybe if you could give us your, share a little bit about Germany's work, your experience, why Germany's decided you want to step up and be co-chair of the of ENACT, and really where you see where you hope we can actually get to now over the next, I was going to say the next decade, but it's not the next decade, it's really the next 8 years, as there is this real sense of urgency now on what we need to deliver both for climate change, for, I said it's actually not just both, we need to deliver for climate change, what we need to deliver for biodiversity, what we need to deliver for land, for improved land productivity and livelihoods.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to this very important event today. And I think it's really good to have a biodiversity day on the CBD, on the climate COP, so that it's that we build the bridges already in this room, but also from here to Montreal. But before I have a look at Germany, I would just like to come back on the question of integrity of nature-based solutions. It's also for us, social and environmental safeguards are key for nature-based solutions. That's what I also mentioned, and so what you mentioned and what Manuel mentioned, and I think next to the environmental safeguards, the social safeguards are as key as well. So, and I think this is really has to be one of the cornerstones in implementing nature-based solutions. But having a look at Germany, so as you mentioned, 2 examples. So the examples, when I look back on the last decade, first one what comes into my mind is a bond challenge. So I think this is also was started in 2011, and it's about reforestation and restoration of forests. So I think this is really a success story where we have been working together with Germany, one of the first ones, and working together with many partners, and this has been over the last decade, I think, a very, very good example. It hasn't been called nature-based solutions, but I think it's in. So, and as you mentioned, the ecosystem-based approaches, this is another example I wanted to build on, is our international climate initiative. And this is really where we have international climate cooperation and international biodiversity cooperation. So it's actually the initiative on climate and biodiversity. And that's where we really start to work together on climate and biodiversity issues. So this is key, and this is what we where we had have a pillar and many projects on ecosystem-based approaches, but we also have many other on mitigation, but also on nature-based solutions. So which is also have a history since 2008. So this is, it's about, as you say, more than 10 years where on international level Germany really focused on integrating answers to the two crises we are facing, climate and biodiversity, but we also should not forget the third one. I think on environmental pollution, this is also part of this, and this is also included, I think, in the answer, like nature-based solutions. It also addresses environmental pollution as a third crisis as well. On the national level, we also gathered a lot of experiences, and this somehow peaked that the ministry announced the Federal Act on Nature-Based Solutions for Climate and Biodiversity just in the beginning of this year, when the new government decided to put 4 billion euro for the next 4 years for nature-based solutions in Germany. So this is why where we say, okay, we cannot act in silos, we have to act together. And maybe it's why, as you asked, why in Germany we are we have a very high density of population. So there's not, even from a space, we could not afford to do here climate mitigation, to do there climate adaptation, and to do there biodiversity or nature. So even the space is not. Also, I think we have to spend our money wisely and with an integrated approach. So also from the financial aspect, I think it's very important that we address the different issues together. And as we cannot afford to pay the double price. So I think this is experiences where we have brought together, and as said in the Federal Act for Nature-Based Solutions, or for example the National Peatland Protection Strategy, which was published 3 weeks ago, where we have one example of ecosystem, one example of work on national basis, which is also a nature-based solution because it addresses many issues of water, of climate, of biodiversity. So this is where we come from, and this is where we hope we can contribute. And when we spoke to IUCN and the Egyptian presidency, it was really, we felt honored that we have the chance to co-lead the NACT partnership announced today, because we hope we can contribute with our experiences, but we also want to bring nature-based solutions on another political level. And I think this is what we need here, and I think the Biodiversity Day today is a great stop on political level for nature-based solutions, and that's what we hope, what we can contribute to be a co-chair of NACT. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inka. Just before we move to Lila, I think there's a couple of things you raised really worthwhile emphasising this. There is a track record on this already. Again, I want to keep reiterating this point that we've got, as Manuel said, we've got a UNEA definition. We now see it being adopted, the Convention to Combat Desertification. Ramsar last week, G20 yesterday or earlier this morning, have all continued to reinforce the importance of nature-based solutions. We also have got a robust implementation, operational framework, the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions, which has been written and developed by many of you. 800 experts have contributed to it. It really does actually give that underpinning for high integrity delivery of nature-based solutions. You can't do nature-based solutions without respecting the rights, observing free, prior and informed consent with local communities. You can't do it without actually advancing, not only doing no harm, but advancing biodiversity net gain. So I think that's one thing that you've mentioned. I really want to reinforce that. The second thing is, and you mentioned this as well, we're building on a very solid foundation. When the Egyptian presidency actually suggested to IUCN, would you be interested in working with us and shaping up a partnership, the Bond Challenge actually came to mind. We've done this before with successful outcomes. Indeed, the Bond Challenge led the way to the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. We've got this experience. It shows the real value of radical partners, bringing in a wide range of partners, people who are committed to deliver this both from state and non-state actors. So I think there's, again, why I'm encouraged about where we can go is not just the energy, but I think because we've got experience on building that before. I think the other thing, I'm going to turn to Lila now, is one of the things we want to do with ENACT is to act as a platform to show where nature-based solutions is happening in different ways. We heard from Brenda in the last session of Monica about where it was being driven in the United States. We heard from Minister Mkaka about how he wants to drive this in Malawi. And I think actually one of the things that I've had the privilege of actually speaking in several events associated with this region, with the Saudi Green Initiative last week, but also I'm aware that there is a lot of really exciting things happening in the United Arab Emirates. So I'm wondering, Lila, if you could just bring us up to speed, because maybe some of the colleagues don't actually just know just how much progress that you're making in the United Arab Emirates and in the region on implementing nature-based solutions.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here as well today. I think one thing I want to initially highlight is that the main angle of nature-based solutions in the UAE has mainly and primarily been focused historically on blue carbon. Now, there's been a combination of research led by a number of different government entities, including the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi and EGIDI, which have highlighted that our UAE mangroves do actually have a vital role in carbon sequestration. But not only that, we're starting to see from surveys that our other coastal ecosystems, being our salt marshes, our seagrasses, also play a very vital role. Now, from a public and private standpoint, we've seen a surge in interest around mangrove afforestation, which is understandable due to the fact that they're a very viable carbon sink. But what we have been working on as Emirates Nature WWF, so we are the UAE WWF office, is we're trying to really pilot out nature-based solution projects on the ground alongside a multi-stakeholder approach, and I'll talk a little bit about some really cool initiatives that we've got going on. But what we're trying to focus on is around that long-term conservation and management of our coastal ecosystems to ensure the longevity of those carbon sinks, but beyond that also enhance that sequestration. Because as Manuel mentioned, when you're designing a nature-based solutions project, it's really important to not only focus on one societal challenge, be it climate mitigation or adaptation, but to look at what are the wide variety of societal challenges that you can address through that, and how can you also look at creating almost microeconomies within these local communities, enhancing green job development as well, tied to products and services, linked essentially to the protection of that ecosystem. From a UA standpoint as well, recently, in the recent update of the National Determined Targets, they've also integrated a component there around the importance of coastal ecosystems, namely coastal wetlands as well, in supporting the country in achieving global commitments related to climate change mitigation and adaptation. And just a couple of days ago, fortunately, we also launched a partnership with the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, with the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi, to work towards collective action around nature-based solutions. And we feel that that's a very nice synergy with the ENACT partnership, because we're hoping in the road up to COP28 that we'll really be able to try and create those case studies from a technical, commercial feasibility standpoint to showcase what can actually be replicated, because as we know, we don't have time, and we need to look at rapid replication of projects that work on the ground. So I'd love to highlight those projects a little bit later, but I'll maybe pass back on to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Lila. And I think, again, you touched on an issue that I think is also really important, and we've heard it coming through today and actually in other events, that nature-based solutions, we get this right, you actually start to create decent jobs, new economic opportunities. We've got our colleagues in UNEP, the International Labour Organization, and IUCN are actually now, every year we're going to embark on doing a report on decent job creation and nature-based solutions. And I think this is another key attribute that you've highlighted that I think we're only starting to scratch the surface on. And if ENACT starts to get partners working together to look at this together as a stream of work, we can then really start to pull out the evidence of what that, of how that actually manifests itself. The other thing I really like to thank you on is really highlighting the importance of nature-based solutions across a wide range of ecosystems. We often hear the default one is forests, but as you rightfully highlighted, the opportunities with coastal and marine are significant. Salt marshes, kelp forests are another one, coral reefs and mangroves. And of course, we've all, this last week, we launched, the high-level champions launched the Mangrove Breakthrough. That includes work from the Global Mangrove Alliance, but it also includes a new initiative, the Mangrove Action Coalition, which is
UAE-driven blue carbon initiative.
Yep.
Yes.
The government of Indonesia, with some real ambition as well. And I just to illustrate that point, if we can get the mangrove achieve the mangrove breakthrough by 2030, which is to halt the loss of any further mangroves and restore half of those that have been lost recently, we will sequester around 240 million tons of carbon. That's the equivalent of taking 50 million cars off the road. In addition to that, it will protect 15 million lives. It will also protect $65 billion worth of homes, properties, and infrastructure. So really, I think a lot of exciting potential. I'll just look at the time here. Maybe I'll give a quick opportunity. Is there anybody who would like to have a question, particularly for Lila or for Inka on their work?
I have an assessment on my this event, especially your items. I am participating from Turkish delegation, and as you know, climate catalyzing natural-based solutions for climate and biodiversity action, and much emphasis was placed on the climate and biodiversity in conversation on NBS. However, I think that a little more emphasis should be placed on the combating desertification. Combating desertification is a very important issue in Turkey. We look forward to the NBS on combating desertification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And actually, that's a very relevant comment. We had a discussion with the Secretariat of UNCCD last week. Ibrahim Tiao wanted to be here, and because he is very, as you know, nature-based solutions is already recognized by the convention, and Ibrahim wanted to be here to actually talk about particularly that role. So thank you actually for raising that. That is a point. And again, this is one of the, we've talked about nature-based solutions being an integrated framework, but it can integrate climate, biodiversity, and indeed combating desertification. I just wondered, I want to maybe Lila and Inka, we're going to run out of time soon, and I'd just like maybe some of your perspectives on some of these other ways that nature-based solutions can integrate with solving societal challenges.
Well, I think, if I may, I just wanted to showcase or highlight a little bit, a few examples that we have on the ground. One of our projects that we launched last year in partnership with HSBC, with the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi, and with ICBA is really focused around nature-based solutions for climate, for biodiversity, and for people. And it focuses on ecosystems, but coastal ecosystems specifically. And it looks at how do you integrate sustainable blue economy principles as well within trying to solve that particular challenge. With this project, we also followed a different approach, because in the UAE, and this is where it's important that with nature-based solutions, you're looking at that customized approach that's relevant for the country that you're implementing it in. In the UAE, we do have a number of different coastal ecosystems that co-occur within the same habitat, so coral communities, seagrasses, mangroves, etc. And so we followed a seascape approach with this project in particular, where we looked at how can we, of course, conserve and ensure the long-term management of these coastal ecosystems and ensure that, again, carbon sequestration rates are enhanced through those efforts. But how do we also look at unlocking blended finance mechanisms towards topics such as food and water security, towards topics such as ecotourism. So it's about addressing different challenges, not just the climate mitigation adaptation challenge. And through that, you're enabling new business innovations for the local communities on the ground. And to follow up on your point as well, we also looked at a nature-based solution project which was with the local rural communities, working with local farmers, whereby we're trying to create sustainable model and resilient farms across the rural communities. And by default, that addresses, of course, climate adaptation, because you're building resilient communities at the end of the day. But it also addresses other issues, right? It addresses the food and water security issue. It ensures long-term sustainability of small-scale food production as well. That in the UAE we know is a very arid environment, similar to, of course, your country. And we need to address topics tied to water conservation. So this was another nature-based solutions example that we looked at, where again it's also tied to what are those policy instruments that need to be put in place in the ground to support the long-term sustainable agriculture aspect of it. So I think it's important to highlight these solutions and not just talk about it from a broad standpoint, and that is the purpose of the ENACT partnership as well. How do we connect these case studies on the ground?
I think that's a really excellent point, and I think we definitely should note that. I just want your reflections, and then I'm being signaled that I need to wrap up here. So have you any reflections you've got on, again, this broader approach of nature-based solutions? That we are here in the Climate COP, but we've always sold it as being able to solve several societal challenges. Anything?
We are here at the Climate COP, but we built the bridge to the CBD COP, and I think Montreal is it's a few thousand kilometers away, but only 2 weeks. I think we are only 2 weeks about the CBD communities. So this is what we really have to broaden. So it's not only a climate discussion, and we had the UNEA resolution, which is also from a broader UNEA view. So this is where we really all work together, and that's why at all these different venues or occasions, we have to work together, and this is why we are very thankful to Egypt and IUCN to show the leadership. And as I said, we felt honored that we are able to co-chair, and we want to bring this to Montreal, or take this with us also to Montreal, but also want to broaden it. And as I said, follow up on the UNEA 5 resolution. There's a consultation process to be going on, so this is where we have really to broaden it. Yes.
Thank you very much. We are just about to wrap up, but maybe I could just make one more point on this here. I think this is nature-based solutions works with healthy, well-managed or restoring ecosystems. Those can be completely natural ecosystems, or they can be good agricultural ecosystems. But I want to bring this point again. There is a big difference, and I've had a real privilege of actually working with several regional events this week. There's a big difference between deserts and desertification. Desertification is about the collapse of an ecosystem into another. A desert can be a well-managed, hyper-arid ecosystem, and I think you've made that point, Leila, and that's what we should be looking at. How we can use these different ecosystems, coastal, hyper-arid, arid, tropical wet forests, how you can use these to really solve the problems, generate, I say, generate good opportunities for the communities who live there, because it is people-centred, but also being able to help address several of the real challenges that we are facing now. The part of our problem has come because we've forgotten about that. We've tried to solve one problem at a time. We've tried to convert deserts into green. We've tried to convert tropical forests into agriculture. What we need to do is we need to be starting to work these systems through in a much more integrated way. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. I really look forward to seeing you all in Dubai in this time next year, where we will have our first report of the ENACT partnership. Thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to Bruno, and thank you to Monica. Thank you very much.